Hey YouTube, I'm up, about to clock in, and I'm making product. This is the time of night when my house is quiet, so I like to use it wisely. Well, honestly, I just wanted to keep it to myself, but I like reading with y'all because I'm reading this stuff for the first time too. So we're going to get into chapter 6. I hope everyone is doing well. Peace and power to you, family. I'm going to stop saying YouTube family because there's still a separation. And we're trying to break down those walls that we've been building mentally under our oppression. We've been taught the illusion of seclusion. We don't want to stay around our own people. We don't want to deal with our own people. So try to break down these walls. There are still boundaries, but we got to start somewhere. Anyway, chapter 6, HR, excuse me, how to get my throat. HR 4079. Okay, let me make sure. All right. So HR 4079 and FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, tool that can be used to establish the police state. Patriots and tax protesters, you must never be found at home on any holiday. Your life depends upon how well you can obey that rule. Okay, so we do know that they do a lot of things under the guise of holidays. If you don't pay attention, let me enlighten you right quick. A lot of our laws and our executive orders and treaties, excuse me, are usually filed on holidays or the holiday weekend while we're distracted, shopping, enjoying ourselves, kick back, This is when they do this stuff. So, he's saying, FEMA and how they should never be at home. A lot of stuff gets done around that time period. I don't know. Anyway, page 122, chapter 6, FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency. The following is a transcript of an audio tape with an urgent message to the people from William Cooper on the subject of HR 4079. We must stop the traitors now. William Cooper dictated this information to me by phone in early 1990, and I tape recorded the information as he gave it. I made many tapes and sent them out exactly as Mr. Cooper has asked me to do, and those recipients have done the same. My name is Richard Murray, and I believe that William Cooper is the only man in America outside the secret government who truly knows what is happening and what it means to us, the average American citizen. Oh, and just so y'all know, I'm also doing a YouTube video, so subscribe, like, donate, buy now, GoFundMe. All my buttons are right there for you. Oh, okay. Anyway, getting back into Bill Cooper, chapter 6. Begin tape. There's a guy by the name of Buster Horton. He's a member of FEMA, and he's a member of the interdepartmental unit, which is empowered in the event of a national security emergency to become the unelected national government, a sort of FEMA secret government, so to speak. A pretext for invoking those emergency measures can be found almost daily in the newspapers. It can be anything from the suspension of debt payments by the high bureaus of American countries to mass runs on U.S. commercial banks. And that's an issue. Excuse me. By the way, that's being handled personally by the National Security Council and Brent Scowcroft, to food shortages to the drug war. The whole bit, anything, any disaster emergency declared at all, even including the oil spill from the Exxon tanker in Alaska. If the president had declared a national emergency, that could have triggered it. Any instability in the Middle East, anything in fact. And they've already tested their capabilities in April 1984. Excuse me, y'all. I'm gonna give me some water. Okay. And they've already tested their capabilities in April 1984 with Rex 84A. We've heard King Drop tell us about that Rex 84. He did a series on his show. I think that's when the show was running before. So they did a whole, I'd say about 5 hours. I listened to it on Rex 84. So, where am I? Sorry. And that was designed to test the readiness of the U.S. civilian and military agencies to respond to a serious national security crisis. Now, the executive order that will implement this, the Executive Order 11051, details responsibilities to the Office of Emergency Planning, or FEMA. It gives authorization to put all executive orders into effect in times of national emergency declared by the president. Increase international tension or economical or financial crisis. Note that it covers every conceivable domestic crisis, but does not even mention war or nuclear attack. And y'all, excuse me. If y'all don't have this book, you can go over to 432thedrop.com. Or I don't know if it's the top. But you can go over to King Drop's YouTube channel and click on his webpage, and he has a PDF of this book available. Now, the only thing that has to happen for FEMA to be able to implement all the executive orders, emergency executive orders, is for the president to declare a national emergency of any type, as long as it's a national emergency. Sorry. Executive Order 10995 provides for the takeover of the communications medium. Executive Order 10997 provides for the takeover of all electric power, petroleum, gas, fuels, and minerals. Executive Order 10988 provides for the takeover of food resources and farms. Executive Order 10999 provides for the takeover of all modes of transportation, control of highways, seaports, etc. Executive Order 11000 provides for mobilization of all civilians into work brigades under the government supervision. Executive Order 11001 provides for governmental takeover of all health, education, and welfare functions. Executive Order 11002 designates the Postmaster General to operate a national registration of all persons. Executive Order 11003 provides for the government to take over airports and aircraft. Executive Order 11004 provides for the Housing and Finance Authority to relocate communities, designate areas to be abandoned, and establish new locations for populations. Executive Order 11005 provides for the government to take over railroads, inland waterways, and public storage facilities. Now, all of these were combined under Nixon into one huge executive order, which allows all of this to take place if the president declares a national emergency, and it can be implemented by the head of FEMA, not by the president. The president has already given him that power under these executive orders. Excuse me. All of these were combined into Executive Order 11490, and that was signed by President Carter on July 20th, 1979, and is in fact law. So if H.R. 4079 is passed and the president does what it says and declares a national emergency because of the drug situation, whether it's for 1 year, 5 years, 5 minutes, or forever, it doesn't make any difference. FEMA then can implement all these executive orders, take over all local, state, and national government, suspend the Constitution, and do whatever they want to do. Now remember what North said during the Iran-Contra hearings. He said that they were prepared to suspend the Constitution of the United States, and he said if it hadn't been for their getting caught, that this would have happened, and all that did was delay it. So he's saying the only thing that stopped them from doing is getting caught, and that this would have happened, and all that did was delay it. So he's saying it's just delaying it. This is what is still going to happen. Now they've nominated, and I think he's been appointed, Major General Calvin Franklin, who's the head of FEMA. He was nominated because of discussions proposing the removal of the implementation of the National Guard in Washington, D.C., and Major General Franklin is or was the commanding general of the District of Columbia National Guard. Now you got to know that, excuse me. Now you got to know that the National Guard would be of no help at all combating drug traffic in Washington, D.C. or anywhere else. The primary effectiveness of the National Guard is in controlling mass civil disorders. Let me see what time it is. Oh, I always forget. I have this candle lit, and I always put my arm over it and burn my arm. Okay, so on March 24th, President Bush issued a new executive order delegating to the director of FEMA powers which were vested in the president by the Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act of 1988. And although the order is described by the White House as simply a technical matter, in reality the revision delegates to the FEMA director direct responsibility for a large number of items which were earlier only the president's prerogative. Prerogative. And that includes responsibility for general federal assistance, federal emergency assistance, hazard mitigation, individual and family grant programs, and the power to direct other federal agencies to assist in an emergency. And that's the key. All other federal agencies will come under FEMA. Of course, the president retains the power to actually declare an emergency, but as soon as he does that, the implementation of the measures utilized will be transferred directly to the director of FEMA, the brains behind this contingency plan for a police state were the members of the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission, both of which Bush is a member, and Brent Scowcroft, National Security Advisor, who was a member of FEMA's advisory board until he was appointed by Bush to head the National Security Council, is a member of the Trilateral Commission and also a business partner of Henry Kissinger's, who has been a traitor to this country for many, many years. And of course, Scowcroft would become the superior to FEMA in the chain of command of the national security emergency whenever it is declared. The FEMA Advisory Board is dominated by Professor Samuel P. Huntington. In 1978, Huntington drafted a Jimmy Carter presidential Memorandum 32, which led to the creation of FEMA in 1979, and he's a Harvard professor. He wrote the seminal piece for the Trilateral Commission in the mid-1970s, recommending that democracy and economic development be discarded as outdated ideas. He wrote as co-author of the book Crisis in Democracy. We have come to recognize that there are potential desirable limits to economic growth. There are also potentially desirable limits to indefinite extension of political democracy. A government which lacks authority will have little ability, short of catalysmic crisis, to impose on its people the sacrifices which may be necessary. All of Huntington's ideas were rewritten into National Security Decision Directive 47, which is in NSDD 47, and that was enacted by President Reagan on July 22nd, 1982. It identified important areas to be upgraded, such as the nation's industrial base to maintain the national defense, but it nonetheless, and this is very important, laid the groundwork for the secret government's options to institute a police state, and its title is Emergency Mobilization Preparedness. It ordered preparedness measures that involve the waiving or modification of socioeconomic regulations that delay emergency responses and that should receive priority attention. It also specified that the preparedness measures that are or may be impeded by legal constraints be identified in the priority task that lays the groundwork for the suspension of the Constitution. Make copies of this tape if you want to. You don't even have to transcribe it if you don't want to, but get this out to the people. It's important that they understand that if H.R. 4079 is passed, their history, they won't pass it if we get this out to the people and tell them that this is what they're doing. Most people don't even know about it, and that's to the secret government's benefit. If we get this out to the people, what they're doing, then people can get on the phone and then go down and kick their congressman's ass, which is what they should have been doing years ago, and get this thing thrown out of Congress. And the next thing they need to do is throw the congressmen and their senators out of Congress and keep them out of Congress and put their neighbors in there, people they can trust, and keep them in there for only one term. The Constitution is in serious danger. This has nothing to do with the right wing, left wing, or any other damn thing. It has to do with the Illuminati taking over this country and joining in the New World Order. When you give this out to people, make sure they agree to make 10 copies and send them to all of their friends. End of tape. I decided that the transcript of this tape says it all. Why write it again? H.R. 4079. As of this writing, H.R. 4079 is still in committee and has not been subjected to a vote. It is one of the most deceptive and dangerous pieces of legislation to go in front of the Congress in many years. It must be stopped at all costs. You must call your representative and stop this bill. H.R. 4079 has included within its pages two provisions that are meant to divert attention from the fact that the bill would declare a state of national emergency for 5 years and would allow FEMA to literally take over local, state, and federal government. This means that the Constitution of the United States could be suspended. The diversions used are terrible if allowed to sneak through. One is a clause that would eliminate the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution, and the other would eliminate the Eighth Amendment to the Constitution. The diversion would cause heated argument over the two provisions, resulting in some sort of compromise while allowing the declaration of a 5-year state of national emergency to sail right through Congress and become signed into law. If that happens, it's goodbye USA, hello New World Order. Call your congressman and insist that he or she deliver into your hands a complete copy of H.R. 4079 immediately. Do not take no for an answer. Read it and defeat it. Added before press time, H.R. 4079 may have been secretly passed just as SB 2834 was passed, and H.R. 4079 may be Public Law 101647 signed into law by President Bush on November 29, 1990. If this has occurred, then we are already subject to a FEMA takeover. I am attempting to acquire a copy of PL 101-647. This late-breaking news was furnished by a congressional staff member and has not been verified as of January 8, 1991. And here are some more sources from that part of the chapter. I am about to clock in, so I'm going to stop right here. This is page 127, and we'll pick up on 128. Peace and power to y'all. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe.